Hello, my peculiars. We have a very special show tonight. In fact, we're kind of featuring, it's like a double feature because we're not just talking about a wonderful, marvelous book and a wonderful, marvelous history. We're also talking about a wonderful, marvelous museum. I know I'm excited. I know you're excited because you've already been typing questions, and I know Davey is excited.
I am very excited. Hi, Peculiars. How's it going? And if you stick around to the very end, she has a very special surprise for you. Kristen has a very special
Wait.
surprise for you. So,
It's super cool. So, without further ado, allow us to invite both of our guests here tonight right into the feed with a wonderful. You forgot the explosion again,
oh
Davey.
my gosh, I'm just so excited.
Delayed ink explosion. It's like a squid who wasn't that frightened, just a little. So, delayed reaction. But welcome to the show, Anna Dhody and wait, I did it the wrong way. Anna's under me. Kristen's over here. Very excited to have you both on. And for our peculiars, Anna is actually the curator at the Mütter Museum, and I've known Anna for a long time. I've been to the Mütter Museum to do research. I've seen babies in bottles and things, big colons. But I also have Cristin, and Cristin is the one who wrote this fabulous book. And I know there are questions. As a matter of fact, as soon as I got on, I saw this. Oh, hey. So, first question, tell me more about the web. Before the show even started. So Susan was like, excuse me, this needs to be addressed. So I thought we would start with that question without further ado, and then we'll have a moment to talk a little bit about the cocktail that we decided to do as well. So tell us. There's as Susan says, the poor lady was just there. There has to be a story.
Right. Yeah. So we're talking about Mary Alsop Mütter, the wife of Thomas Dent Mütter, founder of the infamous Mütter Museum of 19th century pathological specimens, or medical oddities, as some people might say, in the Mütter in Philadelphia. The most fantastic museum ever, most popular museum, science museum in the country for between 18 and 35-year-olds. And Mütter married when he was very young, in his 20s, to a woman named Mary Alsop. Mary Alsop came from a very religious, wealthy family in Connecticut. And there is an Alsop family archives in Yale that you can dig into and find correspondence. And I was able to read through that to learn more about Mary. But unfortunately, the correspondence back then was not unlike Facebook of the mid-aughts. It's a lot of chatty, catty comments about who people are marrying and, oh, hey, girl equivalents, not a lot of my husband's doing this surgery or anything like that. But she was devoted. They never had children. It is never explained why. And in her correspondence, she never mentions it. We do have some theories. It goes along with the mystery of Mütter's early death. Some people believe he has consumption. Anna was the one who proposed the theory that he had syphilis. What kind of syphilis did you think, Anna?
Potentially congenital, but it's hard to say. It's one of those very ephemeral things where it can go into dormant for decades.
Right.
But generally, if you have congenital syphilis, you don't tend to live that long. But there's outliers. So it's one of those things where a lot of people had it, a lot of people didn't. But he could have acquired it prior to marriage.
Yes, during his years in France. And so I would say the three biggest questions I have gotten on the road that are specific are more about Mary Mütter. And that is sort of the story of Mary. She was a very devoted wife. When he passed away, she was by his side, carried him back to Connecticut, and he is buried on a family plot, which Anna has visited. And
it's a mausoleum.
It is a mausoleum.
It's a mausoleum. Yeah. And I did a pilgrimage there. And we parked the car, and I'm not saying I tried to break in, but I did test the door. Well, if it had been opened, clearly that would have been a sign that was an invitation. I was meant to go in. We did shine a flashlight in, really couldn't see anything, but it's beautiful. Red stone, and it's kind of built into the side of the hill. And it's pretty much the only, that row is the only mausoleums in that entire cemetery. But I found out from Mary Roach that that's near Wesleyan University.
Yeah.
And apparently she used to get perhaps I won't say she got drunk. She would imbibe, perhaps. You know, because she's not here. I don't want to you can't tell people I got drunk. She perhaps had some beverages near that area, so she actually knew about it before I did, which I thought
yeah.
Right.
And never remarried. So I would say questions about Mary, and I wish there was more. Believe me, I wish there was more on Mary. Questions about how Mütter really died, which again is not definitive, and there are many people who, based on the information, have theories. And then, is Mütter gay? Is another one that is the top one. And, you know, again, very close friendship, traveled with men. But I wish there was a smoking gun.
Right. But if he had syphilis, then his wife probably hoped.
That she wouldn't.
Friends, you know.
I also think there's pretty much no doubt he probably did have tuberculosis. I mean, like he would take these vacations to get to air and warmer climates and stuff. They also mentioned he had gout. I think he probably had a lot of. They mentioned, Cristin, didn't they mention something along the lines that he was kind of frail of health?
Yeah.
Throughout his life. He did a lot. He was ill from his childhood on, and then the doctors in the South at that time, you know, had very dramatic treatments. He was an orphan ward, so they weren't really invested in keeping him alive, you know, as much as maybe biological children. So a lot, you know, he went through a lot, which, you know, I believe inspired him to become a doctor.
Yeah, that brings me, one of Susan's she made one final question, which well, it's not the final question. Her last question had to do with about Mütter seeming like such a very dear and compassionate man. And, you know, sometimes I wonder, is it that early hardship? Is it illness? Is that frailty that sort of makes him this very compassionate person? And she asked, you know, if you've researched other people and lived in their headspace, how did he compare for you? Does he really seem like he comes across in that way?
To me, I've written, I'm in the process of researching and writing another book that's set in pre-Civil War Philadelphia, written a history of the poetry slam movement in New York City in the 90s and early aughts, and I have Mütter. Those are my three big nonfiction projects. And I would say the thread that connects them all, I've realized, is I'm attracted to people for whom no one has an expectation for, and populations of people who are just sort of under-recognized and who tell themselves and forge their own path. I deserve to be there. I deserve this. I'm going to be who I want to be, and you're going to listen. And that is the thread that connects all of the stories. And so I think that's what I was most attracted to with Mütter, is that nobody told him you should be a doctor. No one told him you should be anything. It was sort of like, grow up so you can, move off the plantation that I have accepted you on. And he not only said, I'm going to make a life, but I'm going to be, a figure. I'm going to be a movement. I'm going to change things. And no one expected that or set a path, and he forged it himself. So in terms of compassion, I think that was something that he was such a wonderful weaving of the work he did. His ambition is what drew me to him, but at the end of the story, his compassion is what made me really want to write the story, because it's not just a driven singular genius.
Sure.
It's somebody who said, I'm willing to let that go if it means saving more lives at the end of his life, which is not a choice a lot of our singular white men of renown are doing at the moment.
Well, can we just spare a moment to say, in terms of yes, I absolutely think that there's ample evidence to show that he was thinking of his patients first, let's say not always the case, right?
Yes.
And right. So I think, we can talk about anesthesia and his, he didn't write a lot, but he took detailed notes of how many times he used anesthesia in his clinic and reported that were no adverse side effects. Meanwhile, you've got, and talking about the just complete opposite of compassion. You had people like Miggs, you had people like Lighty, and some of these other people that, my God, the very proud to write about their lack of compassion, very proud to write about the fact that, women deserve to be in pain because of the sins of Eve, So, while Mütter absolutely set the bar for compassion, we have to say how low the other physicians went.
His hero, is it, I'm not going to sure if I pronounce it right, is it Dupuytren, the French surgeon?
I don't do I do Spanish.
I know. They were like, why didn't you do the audiobook? You're a performance. You have any of these names. But anyway, that was his hero. He was this big inventor of plastic surgery, surgical radical in Paris. And he used to bring the patients he was working in through their nostrils. He would hook them in their nostrils and pull them in like that, and then force them onto the ground as he discussed them. So that is the man that he looked up to and said, this is the work I want to do. But he did not, so that was how the greatest plastic surgeon of his time treated his patients. And then you look at Mütter, who spent days massaging his patient's skin and desensitizing them to instruments, so that when they went into surgery, they knew what was going to happen, and they had as much promise as possible not to vomit or have pain. No one was doing anything like that at that time period. It's radical, let alone when you get into anesthesia, and the society was rejecting it. It was like, no, this is the future.
Yeah, but Dubé did have a museum. So that maybe was one thing that he kind of got from him.
Oh yes, that's true.
I'm gonna sneak in here. We have so many questions, you guys. I'm gonna lose track of them. So I gotta back up in here. I will say this. Leanna had pointed out it's a good thing that we're doing well when we have so many questions out of the gate, so much to talk about. She's also hoping that we'll get around to talking about the kids' book, and we will.
Yes.
Oh, that's not this. I'm not taking Kristen's time.
No.
Ted actually follows our events. So the illustrator, he goes on our Facebook page and things, and so it's kind of nice. He also illustrated the Fancy Nancy series, which is kind of fun.
Shout out to Ted.
And it's really we did create a cocktail. Someone just down here, Davey, maybe you can find it really quickly. Someone said Brandy's cocktail doesn't look like mine. You're right. Brandy spent a week driving through northern Ontario to help a friend go visit some ill relatives, and she decided what she really needed this evening was whiskey. We do have a cocktail, and I see a couple people saying, there's just checking out, making sure that we're in good shape. We basically created a cocktail that is blue in color, and it's a lot of fun. And we did put the cocktail recipe up in advance, and I meant to send it to both of you, and I don't think I did. So perhaps somebody can help us out and clue us in. If you have
alcohol, so weirdly enough, I'm a sober teen.
Guess what? I'm allergic to I have an alcohol intolerance.
What?
I'm part Asian, and I get that flush. I get that horrible bright red.
So we make mocktails for each drink too, because we recognize that it's not everybody's thing. And it's blueberry-esque. But then you guys started talking about the umlaut. They said, is it why did he add it to his name? There's an ice cream brand that did that, and it made it so much better. Maybe the umlaut has flavor.
What was it? What was the name of that ice cream? It was in the 80s or 90s, right? Frozen. Yes.
Frozen. Yes. That's what it does. It adds flavor.
Mütter, so medicine in that time period was a lot of who you knew. And if you imagine how private a medical history could be, you would want somebody who's got a kind of a mutual self-destruction. So a lot of the doctors that treated sort of the wealthy and the elite were from wealthy and elite families. And Mütter, I think in part chose surgery because it was the one field in medicine where you just wanted it done quick. If someone had to saw your leg off, you kind of didn't care if you played tennis with your dad. You want that to happen as quickly as possible and survive, which was not, always the case. So Mütter took a field in which you could rise up based on your skill. And I think in order to both stand out a little and to showcase his European background, he decided to add the umlaut. And that began appearing in correspondence around the same time that he started his first practice in Philadelphia.
Well, so changing the pronunciation.
We don't know how he pronounced his name.
Right.
So the Mütter Museum, depending on whose voicemail, some people say this is the Mütter Museum, and some people say that this is the Mütter Museum. There is no definitive answer of how he pronounced it.
We like to say Mutter, Mütter, Mütter. It's all good. Just come and visit us.
Yeah.
Germans do give me a hard time on the YouTubes. They're like, you're not pronouncing it right.
I've never been hooked on phonics. It's okay. But But I want to just point out, so we have so our club is quite large and it comes from all over the place. We have some folks Cristin's checking in from Seattle.
Hey, hello, Cristin.
From Blackpool, UK, right at the moment.
And Mike from Germany who's going to want to weigh in on the pronunciation.
Weigh in on. Susan Ballinger says hello, and we've got Mike Breen here who says a squid who wasn't that frightened is his new favorite phrase of the night so far. And R. Gibson has a question here. She says, hello, everyone. Cristin, I taught your book in my course, Blood, Bones, and Burials in 2018, and my students loved it. Not a question, but a comment. And I just wanted to pass that on.
I love the alliteration of that class.
Thank you. And I will say this. I am often asked to lecture at medical colleges, and it's because because of the fierceness of medical education, you tend to start with science undergrad majors before you had humanities. And if you look at the pop culture of today and the doctors that are on TV, House was like a major doctor when kids decided to be doctor, and he's kind of a mean dude who does not have a lot of compassion, but he gets the right answer, and that's how you're a good doctor. Well, as it turns out, that is not actually a great practice, to be callous and harsh with patients from whom you need honesty and vulnerability to really get your answers, your questions answered correctly and give them a proper diagnosis. So medical schools will bring me in to talk and teach about compassion and how that is an important tool, not just the textbooks and the surgeries and those rounds, but knowing that having a human connection, seeing your patient as a human, your patient seeing you as a human, is an important way to be a good doctor. And so I'm really happy that that door is open, and I'm grateful for you for having taught my book. And if there's any, medical schools, I'm available for Zoom anytime because I love doing that, and it's made me a better patient. It's made me be like, I should be honest and forthright so that my doctor can meet me there.
I think there's a great thing to tell you, like a little update to that is Thomas Jefferson University, which was, of course, where Dr. Mütter taught. They have a whole program now where they take college majors, like people who have graduated from college in the humanities, in the social sciences, and they take them through the necessary coursework, just for a year or two, just to give them the chemistry and the org and the things like that, and like really work with them to then matriculate on to Jefferson for medical school, because they realized, and this is no offense to the hard science majors and stuff that go on to medical school, but they realize when it comes to compassion and knowing how to people and all that, it's just as good, or if maybe better, to take somebody with a grounding in humanities and social sciences and teach them the necessary kind of, coursework in order to move on to medical school than it is to take the students that are the hard science pre-med, ride or die into medical school and then teach them how to be compassionate. It can be done both ways. And I think, so obviously no disrespect to the hard science majors that go on to do med school, but I think now to know that there is an option. So if there's any young people out there who thought, hey, I can't go to med school because I wasn't a chemistry major for undergrad, that's not the case. So
not only is it not the case, Case Western Reserve University, one of the things that they discussed at some length was that in terms of applying to medical school, one of the things that made people stand out were majors that weren't bio and chem. And interestingly enough, the major from Case Western Reserve University that did the best in placement in medical school was religion and theology, because it was just an outlier. People just weren't expecting it. And so, yeah, absolutely. The humanities are huge. A couple other people just popping in here. Jay Dubin 1 says, I visited the Mütter Museum many, many times, starting in junior high school and living in Elkins Park. I became friends with the original curator, maybe Gretchen. Gretchen, yeah, that's been ages and ages.
Gretchen Worden, yeah.
Gretchen Worden, amazing. I aspire for her gray shag. She was. If you do not know Gretchen Worden, you can look her up on YouTube. She's got some great interviews, but she did not have a medical background.
She had a bachelor's in anthropology from Temple. That's it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
And before Gretchen, who I talk about a lot in my acknowledgments, the museum was largely, invisible. It was open to medical students, maybe some art students who had heard about it. But the idea of the general public being invited into the museum was really unheard of before Gretchen. And my experience as an elementary school student, rite of passage for any Philadelphian, to be dragged to this museum, and all of your siblings, I have 2 older siblings, they were like, wait till you get to this museum. There's horns coming out of head. There's a lady made of soap. There's weird genitals in jars. And you're like, you're building up.
Right. We would just excite all of the peculiars, frankly.
And that is the gift of Gretchen. And what I have grown to truly respect is that you've got, children. We always ask children, be curious, ask questions, be curious, ask questions, except when it comes to medical stuff, right? If they see a person walking in with an amputation at the elbow and the kid goes, hey, where's that guy's arm? It's like, shh, like, hey, no, like, why does that person only have one eye? Like, and they're shamed very early. And again, some of that is you don't want to make the person uncomfortable and I get that. The Mütter Museum, however, takes everything a child would be told not to look at, right? Do not comment, do not look. Just keep walking down the grocery aisle and ignore that person, and says, look closely, stand as long as you want, stare, ask questions, be curious, and on a huge spectrum. And I think, for so many students of science, they think science is memorizing facts. That progress is a march up a hill and every innovation lands. And the Mütter Museum expresses how wild and messy and incomplete and still growing and fascinating. And it makes kids ask questions instead of being told facts. And that's what I have the biggest respect for the Mütter Museum for inspiring so much of that. And I do want to add one last thing about the Mütter Museum. The last time I was able to visit was pre-pandemic. A few months, maybe 6 months before the pandemic happened. Do you want to guess what their main exhibit was? Do you want to say, Anna?
Spit spreads death.
It was an entire exhibition about the pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic in Philadelphia, and included a march through Philadelphia with lit candles to represent every person who died. Now, can you imagine how many lives in Philadelphia this exhibit saved? Because when the pandemic hit, they were like, I know about this. I know how to handle it. I know how to respect it. Like, I was like texting Anna every, month being like, can you believe it? Like this museum has protected the city that I love so much just by being itself. It's incredible.
On one hand, it was interesting because, and I should say that the month after we did that one, the gallery right after that, right before you hit the gift store, was called Going Viral. And it was all about how we used to think we got infected, how we used to think we got sick. So we took people from the humoral theory through the miasma theory onto the germ theory and then exited.
You'd lift up a rat. You'd lift up a rat and horrible smells.
Miasma. We had to demonstrate the miasma, and here we are, so then, Caitlin Dhody and I did in October of 2019, we did an in conversation, just the 2 of us sitting in the library talking about the 1918 flu pandemic. And we literally asked each other, I asked her from a mortuary standpoint. I'm like, have you ever had to deal with something similar to this, where bodies are piled up and you have no place to put them? And she's like, never. And she asked me and I said, are we ready for, not if, I kind of said, it's not a matter of if, but when, which was it's not new. Tens of thousands of public health workers have been saying that for years, but I had said it on video. And then she's like, we're not ready. And here's all the reasons why we're not ready. And here's what's going to happen, right? This is what you're going to see. And then she asked me, are we ready from a public health standpoint? And I was like, no, we are not. And here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is not me saying that.
What I think is quite interesting is I feel like we've said this on the show before, and the peculiars know this from many of the other things that we've read. History is how we learn things, and we ignore history at our peril. Kristen Meg says, how much do we hate me? Oh, he's the worst. So yeah, we people know. Lexi Hoffer, by the way, just got here. Lexi's a regular, so it's nice to see you. And I just want to point out Rebecca Gibson, she was actually on our show before, and what I enjoyed is a couple of you noticed it was her. You're like, wait, is that Corset Rebecca? Yes, it is. That's Corset Rebecca, who's been on our show before. Corseted Skeleton was her book, and so she's here with us tonight.
I do want to say about Migs that right after, so the book came out in 2014 and it made the New York Times bestseller list. I couldn't believe it. For like 3 months, it was wild. And then right after I got off a tour, I had an abnormal pap smear. And I was like, the ghost of Migs is like, you mess with me, I'm going right into you. I was like, please spare me, Migs.
You want to know the funny thing is I am not going to say anything ill about a doctor named Migs because in my OBGYN practice, there is a Dr. Migs. She is not my personal doctor, but she is a doctor in the pride. There has been a Dr. Migs in Philadelphia since the dawn of the city. So it's like the medical legacies, you know.
Right? There always has to be one. Is it sort of like the Ravens in the Tower of London, which was our first show?
If there's ever not a Dr. Migs in Philadelphia, we're going to fall.
I believe that's probably true. Mike, the Mutter's Corseted Skeleton was part of your research, which is fantastic. I
want to tell her that I did an addendum to my children's book, and in the additional reading, I basically say, and we now think that our corseted skeleton might not actually be the reason why the rib cage is that way. It might not be due to corseting, and it was because we did the updated research. So thank you.
Research is very important. It's huge. A couple other people just popping in to let you know where they are.
Atlanta.
Yeah, Breen says hello from Connecticut. There's some excellent cemeteries here, and of course, also where Mütter is buried. A couple people at Cambridge, UK. Chloe is here. Hello. There. I also wanted to mention that we have we talked about this again. This is not something I want this show to be about, but it has been a hard week, and some of our folks are also in Texas, like Sky, and I just want to say virtual hugs to all of you, and I'm really glad that we can have situations like this and talks like this where we share science and history and knowledge and care for each other and humanity, and maybe someday that will actually spread to things like, I don't know, Congress. Maybe.
Now, people should follow the science on all of this stuff, and the answers will be much easier. But I'm in Texas, and so it's very hard. So thank you for bringing that up.
Susan would like to know, the other Susan, we have many Susans here actually. So second Susan would like to know, says, I'm curious to know if it's awkward or emotionally conflicting being around the skeleton of Carol, since she seems to have been so involved with the staff of the museum. Like, does it make a difference or not?
You know, she would be one of the few that I wouldn't be awkward about, because there's no question in anybody's mind that this is exactly where she wants to be. So she is one of the few skeletons and one of the few, specimens that I can say unequivocally, like, we done right by Carol. This is, we did exactly what she wanted, up to and including her jewelry. I think the one thing she might have wanted was to actually be wearing the jewelry, and we all agreed that was not good for her skeleton, so we put them in the side. Carol and I talked it out. She's okay with it, but I have to change up her jewelry because she has 167 pieces of jewelry, and they get switched out on 4/20, which is her birthday. 4/20 is her birthday. And I may or may not maybe temporarily put a butterscotch crimpet in her case, but you can kind of get a whiff of it because that was her favorite tasty cake. So that was not in her stipulations. We just know that she liked that. And I think, when about less than a year after she passed, we brought her friends in from the Inglis house, and it was such a wonderful experience because they had known decades longer than I did where she wanted to be. And so they all felt like they got this closure, and they're like, okay, you did it. This is where she wanted to be, and we're happy, and she's at peace. And I just kind of love that. And so I love telling her story because it's a feel good story, and it's very rare that we'd be able to say we did it and we got exactly where she wanted to be.
Well, and that's the humanities sort of focus too. Anthro Girl says, hey, maybe some of the humanities and social science won't think that Black people and women don't feel pain, which is a real thing. And the girl's like, oh, girl.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what? We recently had an exhibit up called Designing Motherhood, and in it, we made a conscientious decision to change. One of the things they're trying to change the name of the Sims speculum to the Lucy speculum.
Nice.
And so when we had the exhibition, we called it the Lucy. So we can affect slight changes like that, and they hopefully can take hold because a lot of people come and see. So we try to lead by example.
Briefly, our audience might not know who Sims is. So we're talking about J. Marion Sims here.
Yes.
And he, just really, really quick update for those of you who aren't sure, he perfected a fistula surgery by buying slave women and forcing them to undergo surgeries, and then we named things after him. So that's why the
He's
Mütter
the only doctor in Central Park, or was.
And he did move, but the thing is he moved from the South to, I believe, Philadelphia. And since he did not have a supply of enslaved individuals, used Irish because, at that point, the people of Irish descent were considered less, and the same thing. Oh, they don't feel pain as much. And so, yeah, it's just a history of that kind of behavior. And it's challenging for me as a curator because on one hand, you do need to acknowledge factually that these individuals did these surgeries, which to survive to this day, that they have, saved lives of countless women, improved the quality of life of countless women. There's a way to be able to communicate both sides of the equation. Because sometimes they feel if you're only going to talk about the gloriousness of this physician, you're leaving out a huge thing. But the other side thing, if you just portray them as this villain without this contextual information of why and how, then you're leaving out that. So, I often feel it's difficult because you have to tread this fine line. I feel like I do have to be scientifically and historically accurate about how the tool's used and things like that, but you also have to contextualize it. And so it often happens is I just end up pissing off two different demographics.
Then you've done it right, Anna. That's exactly how we know when we're
nobody's happy. So
Leah's angry. We're here with you. Cristin says, I was wondering if the Ernie Klein mentioned in the acknowledgments was and from your bookshelf, from Cristin's bookshelf.
Yeah, and I showed Davey this. This is the DeLoreans. Ernie's two DeLoreans are in the background. Cool. So it is. Ernie Klein is my husband. Yeah, I'm back to the back of Ready Player One and Armada and Ready Player Two, and yeah, I'm a nonfiction writer. He's a fiction writer. We're a mixed marriage, but we make it work.
I'm married.
You have to collaborate on some sort of hybrid, Cristin.
Well, as you can imagine, we're going through stuff. He's a dystopian novelist, and he's always like, "Oh God, this is the work." I'm just imagining us spinning out, and I'm like, no, we've been worse. There's been worse times, and he's always like, "What happens if all the civilization falls apart?" I'm like, "Well, I know how to do a lot of surgeries without anesthesia." I'm not going to say you're going to survive, but I got the books. So if internet fails out and someone needs an amputation, Mütter help me out.
I just want to say, I think we're people like us. In fact, all of the peculiars, I would say, I feel like I speak truth when I talk about our group. We would be on everyone's zombie apocalypse team, I think, for all sorts of reasons. We have all kinds of interesting skills. Just a few extra things here in the chat here. We have a couple of people saying, again, love and hugs, knowing it's been a difficult week. And Anthro Girl wanted to point out that the Carol story is actually a really, really good one. It made her feel really good to hear how you guys are handling that. And so did Susan, said the same thing here as well, that it's just, a really, again, there are right ways to do things, right? There's things that we can do that are not the wrong way.
And I should mention that we do have this amazing living donor program. We have a whole bunch of people who have literally given parts of their bodies to us, and by doing so, they're still alive, and they give beyond. We call it beyond consent. It's informed and enthusiastic consent and participation. And a good example of this is somebody who's become a dear friend of mine, Rob. Rob literally gave us his heart. He gave us his heart, and the saga behind that, and the drama, and it would make a novel, because he had talked for years about wanting to do this. He initially wanted to give us his skeleton because he has acromegaly. And then, acromegaly in and of itself, super rare, right? In 3% of acromegaly cases, 3%, you have a cardiac complication that necessitates a heart transplant. So you're taking a rare condition, and then he had the rarest outcome of one of the rarest conditions, and unfortunately needed a heart transplant. And he immediately thought of us and reached out to us and said, do you want my heart? And of course we're like, yeah, we want your heart.
Christmas, I gave Mütter my heart.
Trust me, that was bandied about. And of course, this whole thing, and we spent months working on this negotiation with his team in New Orleans, because that's where he was going to get his heart transplant. And this was late 2019. And we were making all these first we had to convince this team, the transplant team in New Orleans, that we're not serial killers and we're not crazy. We actually have a museum. It's in, look us up. We're not, I am crazy, but like I'm a professional organ gatherer.
Peculiar, that's all.
Exactly. And we did all of that, made all this inroads. COVID hit, and he booked out of New Orleans, and all the work we did, gone. And so then he landed in North Carolina. And then within days of him landing in North Carolina, we had to do the entire thing over again because he was in the hospital about ready to get the transplant. So it was drama, people.
Now, one of the things that I wish I could have included more was right after the Mütter Museum was founded, they would, Civil War had started, and people were mailing limbs and stuff and weird stuff they found on the battlefield. And the museum was getting in constant trouble with the constables because they'd be like a bloody limb and they'd be like, what is this story? And they had to defend, like, we're a museum, we collect these on, these are medical specimens. But it was just like, you need to find another way than mailing. It's just blood and gore all over this post.
We then moved to like couriers on horseback. We just cut out the whole, let's just do it on. And at that time, right after the Civil War, the National Museum of Health and Medicine was founded, and so there was a lot of communication, a lot of like trade back and forth without any paperwork, because of course they didn't do things back then. So years ago, the curator at that time, Brian is the curator there now, he came in and he was tasked with doing the inventory. And of course there was a lot of things missing. So he just came to our museum. He's like, can I look around and see what you have? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he just walks in and he could tell immediately just by looking at the mounts, the way certain bones were mounted. He's like, that's ours. Or he saw some white etchings. He goes, that's ours. And I'm just kind of like, well, do you want them back? He's like, no, I just need to know where they are. I need to account for them, and that's it. So I'm like, okay, good, because we were about to have words.
It's a throwdown.
In my house and take my,
As somebody who loves puns, this is a difficult episode for me because I'm all like, there's missing limbs. I'm struggling.
Can I give you a hand? Yes.
Yeah, I'm struggling not to jump on every single one. I just want to point out that we're still reacting to the DeLoreans and the Ready Player One stuff. And your comments
in 1998 as slam poets. I was the New York City champ. He was the Austin champ. So when I say this was not a path that either of us thought we would end up, it's a charming tale of two slam poets made good.
I do want to just say this is another favorite phrase I think of this evening. So the whole I'm pretty sure I can do surgery if I read a book once and I can do it. That's what the humanities is all about. Heck yeah, says Stephanie Smith.
I read it in a book once in Latin. Pretty sure I can do it.
Pretty sure I can do it. Right.
It was Galen.
Let me just pop in here. We've got some people have called you the power couple, which is hilarious.
Thank you.
If called upon, we could all give the old college try to a
Mütter flapper too.
Yeah.
I love it.
Pretty sure let's see. Basically, you're
right.
This is why we choose you for our show. You are one of us. You belong.
I love that. My husband is Jewish. Have you heard of the term mishpucha? That means your family, your tribe, right? Your mishpucha, your family. I have coined the term your nerd shpucha. Your nerd shpucha. So I feel like the peculiars are part of this greater nerd shpucha.
Yes.
I'm down with that.
Don't ask me how to spell that.
I won't, because I'm not hooked on phonics. But I will say this: we've actually slid really quickly through the show, and so we're at the midpoint. And at our midpoint, we always pause for a musical interlude. Today's musical interlude coming from Charming Disaster, who also does our theme music and is a frequent guest on the show. And so I'm going to ask us to pause while everyone repopulates with questions that I have to work my way through. And without further ado, Davey, shall we get charming?
Oh, hello.
Hi, we're Charming Disaster.
And we are charmed to be here on the Peculiar Book Club.
She has a green face and flying monkeys. She wears scarves and leather and lace. She lives in Africa on the island of Iaya. In a tower, in a chicken leg hut in Peoria. She is solitary. She comes in threes.
She's a member of a coven.
Sometimes she's a he. When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door,
she rides a broomstick
or a bicycle.
She's all freedom and free speed and scorch.
She is stunning,
Hideous,
hesitant,
confident,
curious,
furious,
glorious,
monstrous.
She's our downfall.
She's our deliverance.
She's a higher being, surrounded by beasts. She's lurking in the forest.
She lives deliciously.
When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door.
Write your grimoire, speak your grammar, make it grimmer, cast your glamour.
Write your grimoire, speak your grammar, make it grimmer, cast your glamour. She has a taste for incantations.
She's got a sulfur tooth.
She reads the cards and stars, making magic in the margins. Is it myth?
Is it music?
Is it truth? She's a pagan priestess, the witch of the East.
In ancient Egypt,
New York City. When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door, what do you see? When she opens the door.
write your grimoire, speak your grammar, make it grammar,
Cast your glamour.
I love them. I do.
Yay!
They're just lovely. There was quite a lot of chatter going on in here. It was very, very funny. Some of it was, I think it was another one of our Susans saying they wouldn't actually perform surgery. They'll just sit in the corner and drink whiskey, to which Anthro Girl replied, sometimes whiskey is a very important part of doing surgery. I agree with both.
Little for the patient, little for the doctor.
You know, it really does depend. The giving and receiving is quite good. I got 2 more questions coming up. Oh, there was Susan. That Susan. I love all the Susans that we have. We're very rich in Susans.
Susan.
Jennifer Pierce asked a question, and Leanne asked a question again, which I forgot. It had sort of gotten buried up there. But she was asking about soap, do you have to have a certain percentage of fat to make that happen, or can anybody soapify?
Well, I mean, we have to remember that even those who don't appear to have that much fat on them do have a good enough amount, you know. And if you look at the soap lady, what's really interesting is her arms or legs are really not that large. She only has that kind of that belly with the kind of paniculus or the mother's apron, which kind of makes me wonder if she was either early postpartum or even perhaps, you know, and probably not pregnant, but like maybe very soon after.
Right.
Speaking as somebody who has, you know, had a baby and what it looks like right after, it's kind of, you know, it's not great. That might have been something we kind of all just have different ways of having body fat, you know, deposited on ourselves. So I would say, no, you do not have to be what you would think of as like really clinically obese to be able to have adipocere formation. And it's also not 100% like, you know, all through the body, like evenly, you know. So in some of the adipocered bodies, you're just going to see pockets or places where the adipocere has the formation. The soap man is a good example of that because parts of his body just are skeletalized because there was not that much fat. So this is all a taphonomy, you know, and it's a lot of interplay between what taphonomy is like literally the study of what happens to a body after, you know, that individual's dead, they're in the ground or they're in the environment. What happens? What's the interaction between it? So many variables. We also used to think that you had to be in like a waterlogged environment or like a really moist or wet environment, but it turns out that's not necessarily the case. They've done studies, and we have so much water in our bodies anyway that the water we have in our bodies is in many cases enough to start that chemical reaction.
My favorite soap lady story is that it used to be at the top of the stairs at the Mütter Museum.
Yes.
And I came to visit one time and Anna was like, yeah, we're redoing the room. We can't have soap lady at the top of the stairs because people sometimes, you know, it's not uncommon for people to faint at the Mütter Museum. And if they faint, this is what Anna told me. They said they tumble down the stairs and they hit the cabinets. And those cabinets are 19th century antiques. And I said, and the people might be hurt. And she's like, oh, yeah. No. They're fine.
Generally, people heal. Cabinets don't heal. This is what I'm saying. But I will say that in my time there, I like to joke that I minored in anxiety in college. I majored in archaeology, minored in anxiety. Right. And I would just see her there. I'm going, no, this. I've seen this movie. I know how it ends. So we got her moved. That was like, I've moved her like 3 times since I've been there. It's in a new spot. But yeah, it's definitely, nobody fell down the stairs while I was there. It was a few close calls. But I have a good update about this. One of the good, I'm trying to be positive, you know, but one of the good things that came out of the pandemic was we turned to time ticketing. And so we were able to limit how many people can come in per hour, per half hour. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know, our rates of people feeling ill or passing out plummeted. Because as always, what I always said is that I would be there when people would pass out and I would, you know, I'd be front line. Let's go get some juice. Let's get you, you know, sit. And then so many times they'll tell me, it's like, you know, I was told not to eat before I came here. And so you have people who don't eat, and then they come to the museum. We don't have a lot of places to sit people, you know, and they're walking around. And when it was really crowded, we couldn't control how many people came in, the density of the living, you know, would just
always the
living with all their giving off all their carbon dioxide, breathing on my specimens, and all that BTUs of heat and raising the temperature. People would just start dropping. Had nothing to do with the collection. And so I would say 9 times out of 10, you know, 9 out of 10 fainters, it was low blood sugar, pre-existing medical condition, because, you know, we have to fill out paperwork, you know, just so you know. Stephen Colbert years ago did a shout out to us, and he said, Mütter Museum, great place, don't eat before you go. And I was like, no! If I were to do a PSA, our PSA should be, come to the Mütter Museum, have a light snack.
Yeah, like that. A little bagel and a juice.
Little juice, little crackers, then come in. You don't have to gorge yourself. I'm not saying going out to have brunch, but have a little something in your stomach. That's all I'm saying.
We used to run into that at the District Museum, and it was usually like, because there was a lot of college students who don't have money and time to eat, and they would disappear and fall down onto tables and things. Another question. I apologize for leaving briefly. Something was trying to get out of my closet, and I mean, skeletons live there too, but I just want to make sure it wasn't the cat, and it's fine. It was just a monster, so it's fine. Cristin Meston says she was very happy to read about Mutter's fireproof stipulation after hearing that most things were lost to in the Hunter collection. And that led me to, it was interesting because then another comment followed it. Now I've lost it again. I think it was Sky talking about people calling Mütter the P.T. Barnum, a P.T. Barnum figure. And that's really inappropriate because actually he was so thoughtful about the collection and about people and everything. And P.T. Barnum was not.
Maybe that has something more to do with the fact that he was actually a good, what we call psychom. He was a good teacher. He was a good communicator. And
right.
I mean, I think Cristin could talk more about this too, but I think people think if you're engaging and you're lively and you can present well, that somehow that takes away from your gravitas as an academic, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
I would also say he was called the P.T. Barnum of the surgical room because you had surgical lectures at the time. And I have a secret theory that is just my personal theory, that one of the reasons that he dressed so ostentatiously, he would perform in pink silk suits and he would match his suit to his horse to his carriage, was to draw attention away from the deformed people and disfigured people for whom he was performing surgery, because it's very scary if you are used to being hidden away in your family's home. No one talks about you, no one knows about you, to suddenly be thrust in a room with dozens of people, maybe over 100 people who are going to watch you in a very intimate, vulnerable situation. So people have asked about Mutter's flamboyant dress and flamboyant style. And my theory is he did that so that people would be whispering about, can you believe he's wearing a pink suit, and taking the energy off of these vulnerable people who don't want to be stared at. He's like, I will be stared at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you mentioned one of the things we should mention too is a little history lesson about colors and gender, because we in the 20th and 21st century, we associate whatever it's worth, pink as being more feminine and blue as being more masculine. That was not the case in Victorian times. It was switched. And I, for one, if I see a man wearing a pink shirt with a suit, I love it, and I will actually be like, thank you. Bring it back. Yeah.
So
who cares?
Finger Guns is not appearing with us today, but Finger Guns is one of his favorite colors to wear. It's my partner, is pink, and he appeared. Most of our skits are done in black and white, so I'm gonna have to do one in color so I can prove to y'all that he wears pink a lot. Just another quick side kit. I have to say, everyone's really worried about your cabinets. There's several discussions going on here about like the replacement of glass or the varnish and all this other stuff. Some other people saying number one. Number one rule, don't make me fill out paperwork. And Bonnie talking about that they had a similar situation happen when Body Worlds came to their museum. And I know that a lot of people got very sensitive about that one too. Oh no, you guys are typing so many questions so fast. I'm having trouble keeping up.
I want to let everybody know that we actually have a small army of qualified cabinet makers that they're not employed by us. We have them on the roster, and so we're always kind of updating our cases and stuff. And but I will say, oh boy, as somebody who has seen me, Cristin has probably had to see me cursing and trying to open some of the cases. I know every single case and every key, right? And I already know, oh man, are you gonna make me open that one case? Don't make me open that one.
Please work with me.
When in the pandemic, I was embarrassed. I couldn't figure out how to turn the soap lady light on when we did this. We filmed this tour, and we had the Einstein case and the soap lady case, and I couldn't find the light switch. I'd working there like 16 years by that point. Couldn't find a bleeping light switch to save my life, and we just decided to put that blooper in the end. It's like a little Easter egg at the end of our virtual tour, and because I know people would be like, she's talking about it's dark in there. Why do you have the light on? Because I don't know where the light. Turns out there is no light switch.
Oh, you just plug it in?
A surge protector hidden behind the soap ladies.
Ah.
We're like a world-class museum, and we got a surge. I'm like, so we fixed that. But I was just like,
At some point, yeah. I once looked behind a cabinet at the District Museum, and the amount of wiring, like no-nos, I was like, well, I can't take any engineers in here. We gotta shut that back up. Well, we have arrived at the point in our show where Davey is about to quiz our guests, and I know everyone is very excited about this. I'm going to disappear.
Central High School 255. So I'm taking this very seriously.
I used to play a lot of Quizzo.
There you go. Was it the Game of Life? Was it the board game that got us on the pink as girls and boy as blue as boys? It could be.
Who knows? Yeah.
Maybe before that.
Probably some advertising.
I always think back to that. I mean, they established that as kids, you play the Game of Life, and then there you go.
That's a good point.
All right. So the quiz. So one of the things I noticed in the book is that the city of Philadelphia is a big character in the story. So is the city of Paris, and I'm going to ask you about it in a second. But first, I want to ask you about the city of Philadelphia. So the quiz today is called Can I Have a Whiz Wit? That's the name of the quiz.
Sure.
Really, if anybody knows, if you're in Philadelphia, if you're ordering a cheesesteak, you got to say it right. So these are all questions about the city of Philadelphia, and the peculiars will help you out. They're a few seconds behind us, and Brandy will be popping their comments on. But the first question, the city of Philadelphia has more public art than any other U.S. city, with nearly 4,000 blank on display. Murals, statues, or sculptures.
Mural Arts Philly. Philly. Shout out to the Mural Arts Philly program.
Peculiars, I don't think they need your help on this one. I think they've got it pretty much figured out. It is murals, yes. Yeah.
We have a lot of statues too, but I don't know how many we comparatively, but we definitely are murals.
We have some free stamps in Cleveland. Have you seen our free stamp?
We got a big free stamp.
We have some interesting public art in Cleveland too.
I just want to mention that while they did not maybe have the answer to the quiz, there is a lot of discussion about.
They've already started the cheesesteak conversation. Pat's or Geno's. Let me tell you, when I visited Philadelphia with some friends, we sent 2 friends to Pat's and 2 friends to Geno's. We met in the middle of the street and we had a little taste test. That's how we did it.
Do you know my former director of communications? I did an interview and somebody asked me, "Are you a Pat's? Are you Geno's?" And he like frantically was trying to get my attention. And he said, "Don't say it. Don't commit. Don't commit." No matter what you do, you're gonna piss off. So I was like, I thought maybe I should just piss off everybody and say that I was raised Hindu, I don't eat beef, and then just everybody hates me.
Yeah.
All right. So there isn't a cheesesteak question on here, but Philadelphia is home to many U.S. firsts, including the nation's first library, first hospital, first medical school, and first blank. Is it baseball stadium, zoo, or bar?
Zoo.
Peculiars, what do you think? Do you think they got it right? I don't think they're going to need our help. I think I might have made this one a little too easy.
Maybe my father did.
Maybe it's like we're all born and raised Philly girls with showing our Philly pride.
It is the first zoo, yes. The first bar. Do you know what the first bar was?
The what?
Bar, like alcohol?
Yeah.
Boston? Was it Boston?
It was actually in the White House Tavern in Newport, Rhode Island. Apparently, George Washington used to frequent it often. All right. And baseball stadium, I believe, probably goes to Cincinnati. Yep, bars were ubiquitous. All right, question number 3. Let's see if I can stump them. This one's a little bit harder. Philadelphia may no longer be the nation's capital, but it is still known as America's blank capital. Is it the garden capital, the food capital, or the sports capital? Oh, I like those faces. Those faces means I'm
sports. I mean.
Peculiars, what do you think?
Hey, Gritty is my bae. Don't get me wrong. Love me some Gritty. My cousin works for the Phillies, but
no.
Cristin, what do you think? Can we eliminate C?
I'm gonna say B. I'm gonna say food because I don't see gardens.
Hey, look, Zahab, man. Zahab was like. But again, we have Longwood Gardens too. What about the Fairmount Park? I don't know. Damn.
Yeah, we do have a lot of parks. No, but that's not a garden. I must say food.
I like food.
All right, and the answer is garden. It is the name of America's garden capital. Philadelphia Flower Show is the nation's largest and the world's longest running horticultural event. Traditionally takes place inside the Pennsylvania Convention Center each year, but it's held outdoor recently. Yeah.
I just gotta say the Peculiars actually were on this one, so most of them guessed garden, which is rather funny.
Gardener, she's got so many other capitals than that.
So the city of Philadelphia, like talk about it being a character in the book a little bit and how much you had to dive into that.
I mean, I think born and raised in Philly, so obviously I spoke from knowing, and I just love the city so much. I grew up there. I moved to New York City for 14 years, and there's something about Philly that really matches Mutter's energy. It's an important city, birthplace of American democracy. Love Ben Franklin. I met a person who didn't like Ben Franklin once, and my brain couldn't make sense. I'm like, not like Ben Franklin, and they were like, yeah, he was like unfaithful to his wife, and I'm like, what? Like who? Do you like electricity? Do you like libraries? Do you like money? Like what? Didn't Ben Franklin? He's allowed to have some fun in France while creating a nation. So the person was like, okay. I'm like, okay. So I am
spoken like a true Philadelphian. Get in there, like.
Oh, God. But there is.
I will throw batteries at you.
We were a leader in many ways. We were the first state to abolish slavery. We were, we've led we've always had a mix of people. We've always had immigrants, made our city better. And there's something about coming in Mutter as a poor orphan from the South with nothing but a made-up name and his own ingenuity that Philadelphia seemed to be uniquely set up to be him. And then to be the home to the Mütter Museum. I mean, Philadelphia, in the same way that we love Gritty, who's this bizarre thing that shouldn't work and yet is everything you could dream of. I met Gritty, and they were like, don't give your baby to Gritty. And I was like, you have to tell me that. And then I immediately wanted to give my baby to Gritty. I'm like, Gritty, look! Hold the baby! Like, don't! That man's 8 foot tall. But and we did not warn that baby at all. That baby had no idea.
Just so people know what we're talking about.
You don't know who Gritty is?
You have to
just making sure.
I don't believe it.
This is how Philadelphia works. They unveiled Gritty, and everybody in Philadelphia was like, "What the hell?" And then other people from other cities like, "What is that?" And then we, as Philadelphia, like, "Don't you talk about
that? What are you? Who are you? You're weak ass mascot. Oh, you got a lion on skates. Gritty rules."
Philadelphians, we are passionate. Yes. If we love something, we love it. If we hate something, God help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And both Mütter the person and the museum being what it is, this beloved, weird. It's just so well matched.
Brandy, you're two Philly girls. How did you not expect what's gonna happen?
The energy.
That's all Davey is doing.
The energy is on another level right now.
We get like louder and more shrill.
All right, wait. Okay, guys. Well, you can all in this club in ways I was not prepared for. You can be our mascots. Do you want to be our? We need some mascots. All right, I know. I'm getting the vapors. Thank you.
Like orange.
You're making my nose red. I've got like a Rudolph thing. This is going to be a very interesting show for people to watch who haven't seen it before.
You guys
have a announcement to make before we leave for the end of the show.
Wait. We do have that special surprise, Cristin, that we promised them if they stuck around to the end.
Right,
because the bookshelf game is something that's talked about a lot, right? A lot of our authors come on, they have very strong bookshelf game. You can see my junior bookshelf back here. I'm working up to what Brandy's got. But Cristin, you have a special bookshelf behind you.
Yeah, so this is the lower level. This is not my bookshelf. I have an office and I have a separate sort of beautiful room is what our kids call it, which I've lined with bookshelves. This is my husband's. And it is actually Ernie Klein, who wrote Ready Player One, Ready Player Two, and Armada. And it is actually a fake secret door to his arcade.
And our toes.
Wait, what game does he have, Cristin? I need to know. What game? Does he have Galaga?
Let's see. Galaga?
We're going for a full tour.
Let's see. He has, if any of you have read Ready Player One, an original Black Tiger, which is the game featured. He has Tail Gunner 2, which is actually the game featured in Armada.
Nice.
He has and Battlezone, also featured in Armada. And then the walls are just his movie and book memorabilia.
Are you gonna invite me to your house so we can like play video games?
If I could get anyone to come to Texas right now, sure. But I would say wait for me to come to you in Philadelphia, greatest city in the country. And
That's true. I have neither DeLorean nor video games. Mine
just no peculiars.
Off to the side. If you want to see it, I can try to see if I can. Mine has. Let me see.
I do not have games, or I do have a karaoke bar in my basement and a monster in my closet.
That is what I'm missing. Just a random stall
and a TARDIS. There's a TARDIS up there.
Yes.
And a stall. So yeah, I've got mine is more traditional and a lot of.
I would say, as a total non-ambiguous plug, that if you love quirky things, come visit the Mütter Museum and its incredible gift shop. Best of Philly gift shop winner multiple years. You can also visit it online. There you can find signed copies of Anna Dhody's amazing Mütter Museum children's book.
Actually,
and you can get signed copies of my book, Dr. Mutter's Marvels. I'm going to sign book plates and send them out. So please visit the bookstore and the gift store. You can get infinity scarves with skulls on it, lip balm with skulls on it, magnets that will frighten your mother-in-law, like just the place of wonder. Get your Hanukkah gifts early. And
Rach, really don't have to put a little disclaimer. You know, we did not pay Cristin. She is not a paid endorsement. What's the verbiage you have to
I think you should just pay her. I think she should be a paid endorsement. Yeah.
But believe me when I say I have benefited from the Mütter Museum. I do not need anything more from y'all.
I did not tell her to do this, but she made a good segue because I have begun to pick names, to draw names for winners again. We used to do the winners with the cocktail naming game, and we had to quit doing that because the same three people kept naming the cocktail, which is awesome because they're awesome names. But honestly, we've decided to start drawing names out of the hat, and those that we draw out of the hat will be getting a mystery gift from the Mütter Museum. So it's interesting that she's just did that lovely segue for us, I just want to say. So our winners today, and pay attention to your screen name because that's what we actually pick them from. So please send me an email with your real name and your address after I give you your screen name. But J Dubin 1, JDUBIN 1, you're one of our winners. CL is one of our winners. And Anthro Girl, I know who you are, is one of our so y'all have won some stuff. You have to email me with your address, and I will be sending you a mystery gift from the Mütter Museum.
And syphilis is coming back, y'all. There's a lot of syphilis going around the college kids. So get your plushy syphilis in advance. So when your child says, "Mom, Dad, I have syphilis," you can say, "We knew." And just give them the plushy syphilis.
You know what? It's interesting. I did most of my study was on congenital syphilis for a good point of my time, and I have to say that there's good words, right? Congenital syphilis, tertiary syphilis, but the problem is we had a whole book of like syphilitic genitalia, and frankly, after you've seen a lot of those, like you're really hard to shock, and so I lost all sense of context basically for like upsetting things because I'd be like, well, it's not a syphilitic penis, so it's not that bad. So you know,
it does. Baby.
Well, you know, it's funny because like you're mentioning college kids and stuff, but I think the studies have shown that right now the demographic that is seeing the biggest explosion in syphilis, nursing homes over 55 communities. Yeah. So to all of my wonderful, 55 plus people out there, just because you can't get pregnant doesn't mean you still got to wrap that. Okay. Yeah. Because you can still get syphilis. You might not be able to catch a baby, but you can still catch syphilis.
I can't catch a baby. They're very slippery. Davey, we've had several people ask about the Davey baby.
I am good at catching babies. I have a brand new baby at home, and a hand on the head and a hand on the butt, and you've got it. You've got it. That's the key to a baby. Yeah.
That's the key to it. Everybody's been asking about the Davey baby and its enormous amount of hair. Davey's baby has lots of hair.
He's a big baby.
You gotta wrap that. That also needs to go. We've t-shirted. We've come up with so many t-shirt slogans. This is the most t-shirtable of our shows ever. Okay, I have some announcements. I'm going to forget to do them. Announcement number 1. I was supposed to do this show from the Buckland Witchcraft Museum, but because I spent a week driving through Northern Ontario with my friend, I forgot what day / week / month / year it was, and I didn't go, and so I feel really terrible. So I'm gonna like bring them whiskey as an apology. But y'all need to know about the Buckland Witchcraft Museum. It used to be in Brooklyn, and it is now in Brooklyn because Brooklyn is also a city suburb of Cleveland. Not the same Brooklyn, but in some ways it hasn't moved around very much. But it's a really great place, and I hope to do a show there in the future. Charming Disaster played a set there and put it on one of their on their channels, and so I'm deeply sorry that I'm not actually physically at their location at this moment. Some other announcements that you need to catch. I sent out a lot of newsletters this week. One to the VIPs who are subscribers, and that's old subscribers and new subscribers. So just at the moment, both sets are overlapping. If you are not subscribing yet, but you want to, you have till June 1st. And time is ticking down. I hope you will, because the VIP newsletters are fun, and I say weird and interesting things. And sometimes you get pictures of lizards, and I feel like that's a good reason. The regular newsletter also went out. And in that regular newsletter, I mentioned that I will soon be sending out a call to the hive mind of peculiars, because we're looking for new and interesting ways that you guys can actually take what you have as your special gifts, talents, and weird shit and make it part of what we do. And so I'm really excited you'll just keep an eye. It'll be on all the platforms. You won't actually functionally be able to miss it unless you're trying. We have 50 subscribers presently for season 3, and I still have boxes to send out, and I am getting more swag because you guys, I don't know, Anna, Cristin, we send so much swag. It's so much swag. There's peculiar books, teacups and socks and shirts and long sleeve things and books and all have squids on them, and it's great. But even more
cephalopods.
Cephalopods are great. Even more exciting. I can't wait to tell you guys this. It's in the newsletter. It will be up on Facebook. We have decided for season 3 to do concert style t-shirts with a brand new design on the front, and on the back, all the names of all the authors and people that are taking part in the show. And this will be what we're doing going forward. But if you sign up as your pre-order, you also get to tell us what kind of design you think we should do. So we have some choices. There's cephalopodness, which we know is good. There's like also good, like death and murder and stuff. We got 2 very murdery ones coming up. Our last 2 shows of this season are like true crime kind of things. Not in a weird sexual way. Everybody loves tentacles, though sometimes in a sexual way. I hear.
Can the tentacles be doing the murder, and then you can conflate, all the tentacles, each one holding a weapon?
That is actually, so believe it or not, Anna has picked the third thing you can vote for is a mishmash of these things. So interestingly enough. So anyway, go online. I sent it in the newsletter. I've sent it up on Facebook. Fill it out. I need to get the pre-orders so that I know. She got so excited she left.
No, I had to close my door because my son's back in Wisconsin. He's just going to come there.
There's so many people are talking about the murder. Yes, I know. I do like murder. Brandy's face about tentacles doing murder. I got really excited. Okay. Lots of murder. Chloe says she loves murder t-shirts, tour t-shirts, murder t-shirts, whatever.
Murder t-shirts. Yeah, that's a thing.
Murder tour.
Mordor, taking place in Mordor with tentacles. So anyway, that's coming up, and there's a lot more in the newsletter. So I hope you guys get it. I cannot believe I laughed so hard my nose turned red, which I didn't even realize was a thing.
That's our new, Cristin. That's our new bar. Like if we ever do things together, okay, that's the goal. Got to make the face.
Yeah.
The nose turn red.
But not my whole face, just my nose, apparently, which is fascinating.
Next, then have us on again. We'll make your whole face red.
That's like you got to raise the bar now. It's like make me, and then my hat will pop off at the end, and it'll be it has been marvelous having you on. I don't even know what's happening. It's so great. Yes, I do love the t-shirts. They've come a long way. I personally tested them because we tried 3 different brands, and I was like, scratchy, spitchy, I don't like it. Blame it on the whiskey. I only had one. You guys know how much whiskey it would actually take for me to get 2 off the mark on here?
It could be why your face turned red, though. That could be.
No, that's gin. I have problems with gin with the nose. It's the most hilarious Peculiar Book Club ever.
I found out that some gins have almonds in them. I'm allergic to almonds, and I never thought to think that gin has nuts in it.
That's peculiar.
Gin, Bombay Sapphire, nuts. Freaking almonds. This is our PSA now, so those who are nut allergies perhaps might want to avoid the Bombay Sapphire.
Watch the gin. That's nuts, says Sky, and I completely agree. I'm pretty sure there's no nuts in my whiskey, though. Then again,
some of them are. If you have a bad nut allergy, you have to be careful if you're doing a Kentucky bourbon or something. If it's aged in a pecan barrel.
Oh.
I have friends who have bad nut allergies, and they told me this, and they're like, "How do you not know this?" I'm like,
all I know is that Amanda Johnson has a double IPA made in gin barrels, and it's good. So, anyway, this is. I feel like I've had a whole workout this evening. My God.
Another mental workout, keeping us in line. You really are like the ringmaster, trying to keep these 2 crazy
Philadelphia girls
on topic.
I'm watching you all. All right, this was fantastic. Thank you both. Yes, I want to just back what Cristin says here. Thank you both for being awesome, amazing, fun.
For bringing us on. We're so honored.
And I will end as I always do, and you guys can jump in and say this with me in your own homes. I'm hoping that somehow I will hear it coming through the ether. Thank you for joining us at a place where, if you're weird, you're family.
You got the blue bottle blues when you wake up in the night. Don't make a big mistake, 'cause you can never make it right. When you reach out for the vial, feel the ridges in the glass. It's a matter of survival, baby, better watch your back. There is no antidote. There is no antidote.